and I'll turn the time over to Jen. Take it away, Jen.
Hi guys, happy Sunday. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here. I hope you guys are excited to work with me on making a holiday stitched card. Just to give you a little background on myself, I am Jen Smith. My Instagram is Jen Ann Handmade. That's also my website where you can see my work. I grew up in Wisconsin, but now live in Los Angeles. I've been here just about 10 years. I'm a fiber artist, but I also do make polymer clay earrings, beaded earrings. So I kind of am a little bit of a jack of all trades. And I've been embroidering for almost 4 years now. So medium length of time, I guess I'd say, but it's so fun. And this project is really exciting to me. First of all, because I love Christmas. Second, because I got to include a lot of pink. And third, because it also incorporates yarn, which is a really fun aspect of it, something a little bit different for me and hopefully for you too. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through some of the supplies that you need for this class. I think that they were all included in the invite link, so you probably all knew that ahead of time, but just to kind of walk you through what I have in front of me here. These are the supplies we'll be using to make the saguaro cactus and the barrel cactus. So first of all, cardstock. I got pink cardstock, like I mentioned. Your template that was also included in the invite link. I have a cork square basically here. Now this is something that I find really helpful when I'm working with paper that I'm punching through, just to give you something that you can actually move through versus a hard surface underneath it. I have my watercolor paints here with the brush, and then just a little bowl for water, just a little bit of water. It's a very small amount of watercolor painting will do. I'm not a watercolor artist, but I thought it added a fun little extra touch to this project. Something to poke the holes with. So I have this tool here. You can use a needle. If you do a lot of work with paper, you probably already have something called an awl, AWL, that is really hand friendly. A lot of hole punching can sometimes be a little tiring. So when we get to that part, if you need to take a little break, which I often do, don't worry about that at all. You need a pair of scissors, any kind will do, embroidery scissors. I have some Craft Smart scissors here. And then pearl cotton. This is number 5 pearl cotton. So it's a single strand versus like if you're used to working with embroidery floss that has 6 different strands. And then Impeccable yarn. This is a nice, pretty basic size of yarn, so it goes through the paper pretty well. And of quite a few colors, a rainbow of colors is what we're using in this project. And then tapestry needles, yarn needles, anything with a larger head. So this project uses a head that's bigger than a normal embroidery needle, if that makes sense. And then at the end, if you want, we can fill the center with regular copy paper and use rubber cement to cover it. That's optional. And with that, I think we're ready to get started. So first of all, you take your cardstock paper and just fold it in half. You want to get a pretty good sharp crease on that. There we have it. And then just because it's easier to center when you're seeing the actual smaller size of the card, I like to just eyeball it. Doesn't need to be perfect. I like it basically centered and then a little bit weighted towards the bottom. So once you have that, like that, I just open the card back up because you don't want to punch holes through 2 thicknesses of cardstock, trust me. And then just put that on your cork board. And there you have that. Move these up here. So just a couple things to note when you're punching your holes. You don't want them to be too close together because the paper will get a little bit weaker the closer those holes are to each other, and it might tear all the way through. So you want to be careful with that. And like I said, just take it slow. If you need to take a break, take out your hand, go ahead, because it can be a little bit tough on the hands if it's not a motion that you're used to doing. So we just are going to follow the pattern just like that, punching our holes. maybe even as wide as a 1/2 inch. The places where it really matters more is when you're trying to make those rounded curves, because you want to make sure that that comes through. So as you see, we're just punching those holes, taking our time, following the shape of that cactus. I'll do the star. Okay. And we'll just reorient. Look where we're starting this line. That's a little close, so being kind of careful when you're poking some of those holes. And if I'm moving too quickly for anyone, rest assured this is being recorded. So tomorrow it'll be up on the Michael's site under classes, and you'll also be able to find it after tomorrow, I believe, on the Michael's YouTube channel. So sometimes it might take a couple of times walking through it. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. One thing I've learned through doing a little bit of this is that you can always add extra holes later, but you can't take them away. So if you're unsure if there needs to be a hole at a place, you can, leave it. And once we pull the template back off, you can see if you feel like you need a couple more holes. So now we're going to go into the arms. And the process for this saguaro, it's exactly the same as the process for the
Jen, we lost your audio.
Okay, is it back yet?
Yes, there we go.
Okay. Did I, how long was it gone? Did I spell it?
No, just a few seconds. Maybe just repeat the last little bit that you said.
Okay. What I was mentioning was just if you're doing the barrel cactus versus the saguaro, it's the exact same process. It's just a little bit fewer holes to punch, which depending on how you feel about punching the holes, it makes a little difference. Okay, but we're almost done here. And now once I punch the final holes, before we pull this back, one thing I personally like to do, just because at the very top of the saguaro in particular, there are a lot of lines of dots, and you want to kind of know what's going on up there. So I like to pull it back and just kind of follow and make a little note with my pencil where the star dots are. Like the top of them are pretty obvious, but then the bottom ones, the bottom points, you're not quite as sure. And this will all be covered up with our yarn. So, make them faint, but it's not that big of a deal if you, yeah, so. Okay, and then we can pull our template back and we're all done with that. So as you can see, there's a lot of little dots, and I have just a little outline of the star, just so that we know what we're doing as far as that goes. We're done with our cork, so we can move that aside as well. And now we get to do a little watercolor painting. So all I'm going to do is wet my brush, put it in the pink watercolor. And there are so many different ways on this project that you can personalize it, whether it's the color of the paper or the color of the painting, the color of the yarn we're going to use. And then all you really want to do, I know it looks it looks like a crazy mess right there, but all we want to do is stay within all of those dots following the basic guide shape of a saguaro, and just paint it within those holes. And the more you let it kind of sit or work with that paint, you can get it a really dark pink. You could have it be a lighter pink. And I'm left-handed, so I might have to maneuver this a little bit differently than some people would. Okay, and I know that this, okay, so right there. One spot I often miss when I'm doing this card is that very little top part, which I did learn that you can go back and fill in some spots if you didn't cover everything in pink that you wanted to, but I would not color in the star unless you wanted to, or you could paint that part yellow too, and that's an option you could do too. So now we're just going to go down here into the arms. And if you ever need to look back at your template too, just to kind of remind yourself of the shape you're working with, that can be helpful, because until we start stitching, it really kind of looks like, what is this here? But see, now you're starting to see that little saguaro. Last side. And like I said, if you, when you're stitching, before you get to a point, if you see something where you think, oh, I'd like to have an extra hole there to make it a little more curved or what have you, you can always add holes. You just can't take them away. Okay. So then we're done with our watercolor paint as well. Set that aside. I'm not too clumsy, but a bowl of water on my work surface, it's just an accident waiting to happen for me. So then just to speed that process along, it dries pretty quickly, but if you just wave it a few times, it should be in pretty good shape. Okay, while we're waiting for that to finish the rest of the drying process, I have threaded this needle with the pearl cotton, but I'm actually going to replace it with a little bit longer strand. Another thing about this project is that because it's a card that'll be, you know, theoretically in an envelope, I've tried to avoid doing knots on the back of it and just secured the beginnings and ends of the thread through other stitches. If you feel more comfortable putting a knot in it, by all means, go for it. It's not like they're going to be huge knots anyway. And because we're using those bigger heads, these needles are not too challenging to thread, which is nice.
We have a question if you can do a materials review while you're waiting for the paint to dry. So maybe just
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have our cardstock. I'm using pink, but you can use whatever color you want. The template that came with the invitation, so that's an important part too. Then we just need a scissors. You need tapestry needles, just a bigger headed needle. I'm using number 5 pearl cotton in black. Several different colors of Impeccable yarn. I'm using rainbow colors, but that's another place where you could customize too. If you wanted to do all various shades of one color, you could do that too. What am I missing? Something to poke your holes with. You can use a needle, any kind of utensil that you have that just has a little pokey part. And then I also have rubber cement and some plain copy paper. So if at the end of the project, you want to cover the inside of the card, which I haven't done on these finished ones, but you can see, like, in some ways it's really fun to see that work that's been done, but it's also, you know, if it's your preference, you can cover that up. But I think that's, oh, and then the cork tile that I used, and also the watercolor paints. So I used a pink watercolor paint. And I think that covers all of the supplies. And the timing was perfect because now this cactus looks like it's dry. So thank you for the question. The way that I stitched the outline on this card is I just used a back stitch. So I just started through a hole in the back, pull it up, and I'm holding it just a little bit with my finger so that it doesn't come all the way through, just kind of keeping track of it that way till about that much, maybe an inch or so. Come back down through the very first hole of that base of the saguaro. And then we're going to go back up through the next open hole. And this is where it's just a little tricky at first. You just want to make sure that you kind of catch that tail. And we're going to try to catch it again with our next stitch too. So this is how we'll work the whole piece. Now, if you have a really good, I think they call it like proprioception, I always have to look for my holes. I'm not great at finding them without looking at the back for the hole. So we'll just go back through. I got a little knot there, which will happen. Just undo that knot. And then I'm going to try to make sure again that I catch this through that. So see, then at that point, it's pretty good and tight without a knot. But like I said, if you prefer to use knots, go for it. And then we're just going to continue that way. I like to go up the body of the cactus and then do the arms last. Just going through and stitching like that. When you're working with a really long piece of thread like this, it can get a little bit cumbersome, but it is also nice to not have to worry about restarting while you're stitching. And you could use regular embroidery floss for this part. If you had that on hand or preferred to use that, you could use all 6 strands that are on, within embroidery floss. That would work perfectly fine. There's just something I really like about pearl cotton for outlining. I use pearl cotton on most of my embroidery projects to outline once I've stitched all the foundation stitches. And this can almost be, sometimes you can get really almost meditative going through this process because it's just the same over and over and over again. But it does start to give some shape and form to that cactus, which at least for me is pretty fun. Now we'll go into the center line. And like I said, if while you're working on this part, you see something that maybe you missed with the watercolor, or you would like your line a little bit wider, or sometimes I missed that part up there at the top, you can go back in and just with a little, even with a Q-tip if you wanted to, or your brush is probably small enough, just add in a little bit of extra watercolor paint. Depending on how you wanted to use these cards, I was thinking yesterday how last year for Christmas, I did 3 different embroidery projects, and then I photographed them and had them actually printed into cards so that I could do a larger quantity, which is something you could do with this as well. If you wanted to use it as your actual holiday card. And if you wanted to write something on the top of the card or add some stitching at the top of the card, there's definitely room, and I think that would be pretty cool too. All right. So I think you're getting the idea, hopefully, of this outlining. And if you're stitching along, just keep right on with that. I'm going to move over to show you the next part so that I can also take a little bit of time to show the barrel cactus as well. But see here, I'm going, I don't even want to stop because it's so much fun. Okay, so that's the point we're at right now. That's what it looks like on the inside. And so here is one that is fully outlined. So as you can see, all the outline stitching is done, and at the top, a couple points there, I have a little bit of extra paint, but I think it's all cute. It adds to the appeal of it.
I think it would be helpful if you could just hold it up real close to the camera to get a
Okay.
closer view of the stitches.
Is that good or more?
Maybe just a little. Yeah, I think that looks good.
Okay. Yeah, so at this point, that's all the pearl cotton we're going to use on this project. That's what it looks like on the inside, trying to be as tidy as I can. So the next part we're going to do is the stitching with the yarn, where we're going to add all the color and fun to this. I have threaded my needle. I like to start with the star on top, and then I'll do the yellow French knot Christmas lights at the same time, and then I move through the rainbow. Just whatever, we all have our ways that we like to do things, right? So we're gonna again try to not use knots, because like I said, it can get pretty bulky. So I'm gonna go through, you can start wherever you want on the star. I'm gonna go through right there and pull that again. I'm kind of holding it with my finger, if you can see there, just holding it so there's a little tail. And then this is just going to be a regular old, I guess technically a back stitch as well. Going through that hole, and then this is where we want to take a minute and pull that tail through there just to make sure that it's secure. See how that's just so that you can see that it's kind of captured there so it won't come back out. Now, once we move to the yarn, since the yarn is thicker than the pearl cotton, you want to be pretty careful with your pressure through. You don't want to pull so hard that you break the paper, because it is a possibility, I promise. And that's why we made our holes that far apart. And I also just try to give support with my fingers, if that makes sense. Like in the back right now, I'm holding that needle, but I'm also holding the paper, kind of giving it something to almost press against rather than just pulling right on through. It shouldn't be a problem. This yarn is fairly thin, but it's always good to be careful. Coming back up through that top hole. I don't know why, but I always love when once that star is on there, I just think it's the cutest thing. Okay. And like I said, if you wanted to do watercolor, a yellow watercolor up there for the star, you could definitely do that. Go through these holes. And sometimes that the tail comes back through too. Just pull that back out. You don't want any of that fuzz in the front. Okay. So now our star is done. And what I do for the rest of it is kind of organic. So it's not structured. This French knot goes here, this French knot goes there. With this saguaro, I tended to do 4 French knots in each color so that there was a lot of coverage and a lot of color included on the cactus, but that there was still some open space and it didn't feel too congested. So because I'm already working with a threaded yellow yarn, I started with the yellow and just kind of picked a point and came through and did a French knot. Now, because you're coming through holes where you've already done the pearl cotton, just be careful and mindful. I'm doing my French knots with 1 wrap because it's yarn, so it's thicker. So I just wrap that 1 time and then go back down through that same hole I like to say keep it taut but not tight, because that you need to get that needle back through, and then just pull it, and look at the cute little, our first French knot, so cute. And just picking wherever you naturally feel like, oh yeah, that's where there should be a yellow light, and moving around the saguaro. Just one wrap. If you go slow, it probably won't knot up on you. If you move really quickly, sometimes it can get knotted, which they're easy enough knots to remove, but still. Okay. Put one down on the base. And just like I said, using some pressure from behind with your fingers to give that paper a little more stability. And we'll go up and put one more up here. Okay, so now we have all of our yellow in. And all I do in the back, again, is just, I ran it through a couple of times through existing stitches from the pearl cotton. And that should be plenty. Trim it. And then we will move on to our next. I've pre-threaded all of these because I learned that when I'm in front of the camera, for some reason, I cannot thread a needle. I just lose all ability to thread a needle. So full disclosure, that's why they're all pre-threaded. Okay, now again, we're gonna start with red. I think there should be a red one right there. I'm holding it slowly in the back with my fingers so that I have a good sense of when it's almost through. And then we're gonna just do our French knot. Taut, but not tight. And carefully pull it through. All right. Now maybe the middle of the body, other side. And if it fights you a little bit, just kind of back off and go back in. No need to force anything. It will work. I mean, I promise you, it will go through. You just need to be gentle.
We have a question if you can use embroidery thread instead of yarn.
You sure can. Yep. You can use whatever you want. I love the chunkiness and all the dimension, like even from like the side, you can see that fun yarn. But yes, there are so many ways to customize this project to be whatever you want it to be. So absolutely. If what you have on hand is embroidery floss, I would probably do my French knots maybe with 3 wraps instead of the one I'm doing right now, just to give it that dimension. Okay, so we've got 4 French knots of the red. String that through. And again, if you're more comfortable with knots, absolutely go for it. Just trim that off. See, it's already coming together. Next, we're going to go to our orange. We need something up at the top at this point, don't we? Yeah, perfect. Cut it in the back. Now we'll just start our French knots. That pressure underneath so that we can not break our paper.
I have another request to do a close-up so that they could see the French knots.
Sure. Let's see how high I can hold it while I'm trying to actually do one. Okay, so I'm coming through. And then I'm going to, is this in focus? Is it working?
Yes.
Okay, so I did one wrap and I'm going to go through that hole. And that's it. So I'm going to pull gently. It might take you a few tries, but like I said, the paper will break if you try to force it. So, okay, so then we're going to move slowly through. See? I'll do another one in another color in a little bit too, just to see if that comes through better. French knots too, if they're not something that you're familiar with, it might be helpful to practice these a little bit before you start working with them on paper. I love French knots. I do entire projects that are just French knots because it's just such a fun texture, but it does take a little practice. And you would see whether you're using embroidery floss or the yarn that wrapping once, twice, 3 times, using the number of threads that you use if you're using embroidery floss, it all makes a difference. You know, you could have really, really delicate, tiny French knots or really, really chunky ones. Okay, so putting in, I guess this is our 4th orange here. I'm just wrapping once, and I'm assuming, I mean, I've been left-handed my whole life, but you probably do it exactly opposite that. If you are right-handed, you probably wrap the different way. And okay. So now we're going to just turn it over and run that through a couple of times to secure it. So we're getting some abstract art on the back of our card now. Next is our green. So now I'm going to put that one up top too. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries to, if you're looking for a specific hole, it's sometimes hard to figure out what that is in the back, but I think I want this one. Yeah, that's the one I wanted. So gently pulling that through, holding it on the back. But as you see, I do a lot of flipping back and forth to check what's going on in the back. And I've done these quite a few times and I still have to do that. So I don't know if that ever goes away. So we're just working, pulling that through slowly. Oh, our first green. And I'm going to go down here. The base is looking a little sparse. Right. Okay, so here we're coming back through. Did someone have a question? No? Kim?
No, there was another Zoom for the French knot. Oh, Kim Harris does have her hand raised. If you want to put that in the chat, I can ask the question.
Okay, so coming through with the green. Now maybe the middle of this arm. Yep. Okay, so I'll try to do another close-up of the French knot. So we've got our yarn through. We're just going to wrap it one time and then go back down into the same hole and slowly pull that through. And now we've got our 4 greens. Just going to pull that, weave that through a couple of times. And you guessed it, now we're going to move on to blue. So again, I feel like we need to be getting some holes down or some knots down here at the bottom. So try to come up right there. Okay. Wiggle that through, catch it in the back. tight, but not taut, but not tight. Go back through with the blue. And see how it kind of untangles itself when you go slowly. If you were moving really quickly, it would probably knot up. That's why I try to move pretty slowly. Does someone else have a question? Renee? Yes, the French knots are using the same holes as the outlining, which is why it's really important to be careful so that you don't pull through the paper. And then we're going to do one more blue. I think we're right about there. Just one front, one wrap. Weave it through a couple of times in the back. And now we're on to our last color, purple. I'm just scoping out where I think there should be some purple lights. I think on top of this arm for sure. I've got the yellow tail coming through there a little bit.
We have a question. If you do you do other types of projects combining paint and fibers?
I have, I've been thinking about it, but I haven't done anything yet. But it is really fun because it adds such a different element. So stay tuned in the future, and I'd love to see, like, if you guys, if this project inspires you to try some of those sorts of things too, be sure that you tag for the class for today is hashtag Michael's classes, and we'd love to see anything that you do.
And Kim's question was, what ply is the yarn?
The yarn. Okay, so I'm not a yarn expert. It says it's a medium 4, 5mm. Is that answering the questions? It's just the Impeccable Loops and Threads yarn. .5 ounces. I hope that answers your question. Okay, the final stretch here with our purple. Looks like I just got some green that came through. All right. Gentle, gentle, because sometimes it's going to feel like it really doesn't want to come through, but if you just work with it a little bit, it'll usually give in. I'm going to put one here, the base. And if you like it really densely packed, you can certainly put one in every hole. I think as long as you're careful and gentle, it will take that. I just liked a little bit of open space there. Okay, so let's do one more purple. Maybe right next to that blue. Okay. So like I said, one wrap back down through that same hole. We're going to gently bring that through. Okay, and there we go. And now I'm going to thread that through a couple of times to secure it. With it. At this point, it's probably a good idea too, just to clean it up. If you see any extra long tails like that, just trim them up. All right, So now we've got our finished saguaro. And like I said, at this point, it's up to you completely. If you want to take a sheet of regular standard copy paper and fold it. So that's what the inside looks like. So that's when you're making your decision. Now, you could be really, really specific, but all I did when I was doing these was just kind of do a loose wave, cutting my paper. Almost like when you used to do paper snowflakes or something like that. So just trimming the paper so that you can then position it and glue it in there to cover up your work. But it's a complete personal preference because it is kind of cool to see that all of it was actually done by hand, or you could just paste something right here. If you're a calligraphy person, you could write something beautiful calligraphy, but that's the gist of it right there. So that is our saguaro. And I will show you briefly, I'll take you through the barrel cactus as well now. So here's the finished barrel cactus. We'll go through the same process again. We're folding our cardstock really well. And then positioning the cactus however you prefer it. I just like it centered and a little bit towards the bottom. And that's just something I eyeball. You can, hold it up to a light source, but just eyeball it like that. I don't know where my cork went. Where did my cork go? Okay. Thank you. Yes, and then you would just the same way again, you would just start punching those holes. And then you would outline that star again when you're finished so that you have something that looks like this. And then we would go through the same exact process again of our watercolor paints. And just have your water and your brush, paint it in. This one's a little bit easier because there's not those same arms that the saguaro had. Just paint that in. And then we get to our stitching and we have this part. And then you go through what I just went through with you, showing you the star and the French knots, and then just finishing the center if you want, so that we end up with that. At this point, I'll remind you again that the class was recorded so that you'll be able to review it again tomorrow on michaels.com and the Michaels YouTube channel. If you need little reminders, you can certainly send me DMs on Instagram. I love answering questions about embroidery. Use your hashtag Michaels Classes. If you made this project, I'd love to see it. It's really, really fun to see when people do these projects that I've created, and it's been really fun. Does anyone have any questions?
We have one. What is the puncher called?
This is just something I had around my house. The first time I did this project, I did just use a regular needle. But I think technically what I discovered online that would have probably been easier than all of these to use is something called an awl. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's AWL. But this is just a tool. I actually had that to work with my polymer clay earrings. It's just got two different ends. I don't know what it's called, but I do think that you could find it probably in the polymer clay section at any Michaels. It's a set, and I like that it has that pointy edge and it's a little easier to use, but you can definitely use a regular needle to do it. Any other questions? No?
Jen, this class is so wonderful. You're so organized. Terrific.
No, you're just getting a lot of great comments. So great class. You're organized, terrific teacher. Thanks for sharing your creativity with us. Just a lot of thank yous.
Oh, well, thank you guys for being here. This is really, I love what I do. I'm lucky. I'm one of those people that can say that cliche, like if you love what you do, it's never work. So, but I do love answering questions too. So if anything comes up when you're working on these, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I love answering questions. Or if you find something cool or a better way to do it, I love that too. I love learning too. So I guess is
Dead fast. Is it possible for you to show us a French knot with embroidery floss?
We have one more question. If you will be doing more fiber classes.
I will be having another one coming up with Michael's in November. So stay tuned. Follow me on Instagram so that you can be aware of that. And I do get questions sometimes about doing some regular online classes, and I mull it over. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but hopefully I love teaching. So just be sure to follow my Instagram and join my mailing list too. On my website, there's a place to sign up for my mailing list. So I'll keep you apprised of anything else coming up in the future. And it sounded like we had a question about doing this with regular embroidery floss. Is that a question that's on there? I probably have a needle threaded. 1 second.
Yes, if you can, there's one that says, if you can show us a French knot with embroidery floss.
Okay, let me see here. Just briefly pull out from my stash of embroidery floss. One thing is a hoop. I typically, when I stitch, I typically use 3 strands doubled. So I open up my embroidery floss from the middle. I just find that's the easiest way to not get a ton of knots. I usually use a DMC number 5 needle. So just let's thread that really quickly. And then what I do is I bring it through and then I knot it at the bottom when I'm stitching with regular embroidery floss. Okay. I'm just thinking here. I think I have a piece of fabric right over here. 1 sec. Okay. Okay. And this, sorry, I don't have it in a hoop, but I'll show you how I do this through. Okay, so we're just going to come up through the fabric. Like I said, with embroidery floss, I usually do 2 or 3 wraps. So I'm going to do 2 wraps. And because we're not working on paper and this is fabric, I don't go through the exact same hole. I go next to it. And you want to make sure that's tight. It's a little bit easier when it's in a hoop. And then just come through slowly. That's what we get. And like I said, if it was in a hoop and the fabric was tighter, it would probably look a little bit better. But hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions?
One more. Can this be done on canvas?
You could absolutely do this on canvas. I do a lot of work on the wooden frame, but then I actually oftentimes remove the canvas and put fabric over the top of it. So I don't typically stitch through the actual canvas that it comes with, but it is nice to stitch on these wooden frames, and you can definitely stitch it with canvas. Anything else?
That's all that I see.
You're welcome today.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you guys for all of your compliments. You're all so welcome for being here today. This was really fun. And I love pink and Christmas, so this is like my perfect project. You're welcome, Deb. Okay, so with that, then I guess we'll go ahead and sign off. there anything else that I need to mention?
No, you're good. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, everyone have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here.